Hello, it's Erin from the Impatient Gardener, and I'm here today with a little bit of an update. If you recall, not too long ago, I was helping out my friend Eric from Gardenfork with some of the sort of common issues that he was dealing in his yard. And this was all part of a program that Eric and I are working on with Troy-Bilt, and it's called Fence Talks. And the idea is this is sort of a reach over the fence and help your neighbor out and offer some suggestions. So some time has passed here, and I thought it was time to follow up, check in with Eric, and see how everything went with him. So that is what we're going to be doing today. So one of the issues that Eric had was dealing with some moss in his lawn, where he would have liked to have actual lawn. And as I mentioned in that first video, you know, moss is just a symptom of there not being enough sun, and sometimes there are some soil conditions that also contribute to that. Well, the other problem that happens in too much shade is that the plants that you want to grow can't grow, and sometimes there are weeds that can grow. And that's exactly what's happening behind me here. So this big spruce right here, the branches have started hanging quite low. And so there are plants in this garden behind me, and they can't grow back as far as they would like because now weeds are taking over in the shady part and coming out, and now I'm constantly weeding. So I'm gonna actually limb up this tree a little bit today, just to lift those branches up a little bit, get a little bit more light in there so that I can grow the plants I wanna grow, and so that I'm not constantly fighting the weeds as much. My favorite tool for using that is a pole saw. Now this is actually a string trimmer that has a bunch of different attachments on it, one of which is the pole saw. So I use it for limbing up these trees, which means I can do that standing on the ground and I don't have to start messing around with ladders or big chainsaws or any of that. So we're gonna get in there and we're gonna start limbing that up a little bit. Okay, so what a difference that made. Now I just have to get in here and pull out all these weeds, and now I'll be able to have the plants that I want to grow here. So Eric, I need to know, how is the moss situation / shade situation going in your yard? Did you do anything about it, or are you just living with it? I'd love to know.
So yeah, you can see the puppy likes the moss, but you know, I'd like to have a happy medium here. And I think the moss thing is a long-term solution. It's not, I can't just cut some tree limbs and go boom, magic grass, right? We have to bring the sun back to that area. We have to get my puppy to stop biting my fingers. And the best way to do that, Troy-Bilt actually sent me a 4-cycle string trimmer that has great attachments, and one of them is a chainsaw pole pruner. Super nice. So I used that to start trimming the apple tree over here, which has a mossy area. The bigger trees over here, it's gonna be a longer term thing. Some shade might just has to happen. Ow! So yeah, Erin, we're working on the moss.
So the reason I'm down here on the ground in my garden is because one of the things that Eric was having problems with was garlic mustard weed, which is an invasive weed, which a lot of people pointed out is edible, which is 100% true. It's actually often used as a salad green in England, so you can eat it. But by now, if you haven't pulled it, it has lost all its flowers. So it's just sort of a stem at this point. But there is one thing you can be looking at, and that is, this is what immature garlic mustard weed looks like. This is the leaf of that. So you can pull this as well, because you won't have to do this. This will overwinter and in your garden, and it will be bigger next year. But if you pull it now, you won't have to deal with this next year. So you can be on top of next year's garlic weed issues right now. So Eric, how's the garlic mustard weed in your situation? Did you get a handle on that?
Okay, I missed some. Well, I missed a lot. Let's just say that. Okay, I'll be honest. I got overwhelmed. I started pulling this, and then I was like, oh, it's over there, it's over there. It's creeping it's insidious. It's everywhere. I mean, look at this. It's here. It's here. It's all over there. You know, it's here. It's all in here. You know, that's a lot. And I see how it works now. Is it just, each one of these has a seed pod with tons of seed. These little stems, those are seed pods, and the seeds go. So I started pulling them, and then I was like, oh, there's more there and there. So instead of focusing on a small area, I started to pull and I get distracted easily, as we all know. And then I got overwhelmed, and then distraction popped in, you know, my squirrel brain. And I didn't follow till a couple weeks later, and I blew my chance because the seed heads matured, and now the seeds are everywhere. But what I have learned, thanks to Erin, is that the first year one, it's a brilliant idea that I didn't think of. Pull up the first year. This is the second year of the plant. I think I'm right. But like Erin said, if you pull the first year plant, get the root out too, and you can do this all year, not just in the spring when the second leaf is out, the second year of the plant. So the first year is called a floret, I discovered, and you yank that out just throughout the year. You're gardening or you're in your woods or whatever, you pull that out and you won't have to deal with the seed head. So that's what I'm doing now.
So I'm standing in a corner of the shade garden, and one of my favorite plants to grow in the shade is hostas. And of course we all know what else loves hostas other than gardeners, and that's deer. And of course this brings us to one of the issues that Eric had, which was that he was starting to find some deer damage around. And of course deer can cause all sorts of damage, including eating your plants, rubbing on the bark. I've actually had them knock over small trees. So deer are always an issue. So some of my hostas have definitely seen some deer action this year, but it's not been too bad because I've been really careful about keeping up on spraying deer repellent this year, which I still swear by deer repellent. And you just have to find one that works for you. There are a lot of options out there. I will say though that we've also had a lot of rain, and that's where deer repellent gets a little tough because you have to get out. If you've had a really heavy rain, you have to get out as soon as those leaves dry off to get some deer repellent on them. And I think that's where some of the chewing that I've had on my hostas has happened this year, is because I haven't gotten out here fast enough after it's rained. So lazy gardeners don't win this one. But Eric, I'm wondering, how's the deer situation in your yard? Is it working out okay?
Deer problem? What deer problem, Erin? So I don't know if the deer were just hearing me complain about them and then they felt bad and left the yard, but this year, all of a sudden, there aren't any deer in my yard. It could be, we have a coyote population here, and it kind of ebbs and flows. The population goes up and down depending on a bunch of factors, but they do prey on deer, on young deer, so that might be a big part of it. But these hostas here, I haven't had a problem. But I do know how you are dutiful in spraying. But anyway, no problem here. Once again, this is not staged, but I have a 14-pound mammal that is now preying on my hostas.
So I hope you enjoyed seeing that update to how things are going in my garden and how things are going in Eric's garden, and if any of my tips worked for him. And I hope things are going great in your garden, in your yard this year, and I hope these tips were helpful for you. You can find more tips. We've been sharing a lot of tips over on Instagram as well. You can just use the hashtag Fence Talks to see some of those over there. But thanks for following us on this journey. I hope it was helpful, and we'll see you soon.